Good evening. Lisa Didkowski, Global Fertility Business Intelligence, Global Political Business Intelligence, Certified Financial Planner, Plush Capital Management. Let's have a little intro music.
Tell me what this is all about. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Cause I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone. But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lying to talk. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they cold, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light.
Good evening. So the breaking news of yesterday is that LPL Financial, my former firm of 16 and a half years, LPL Financial CEO Dan Arnold since 2017 was fired with cause, no severance. So my former firm, LPL Financial, 16 and a half years, CEO since 2017, Dan Arnold was fired with cause. So digest that. So I loved LPL Financial. I was a certified financial planner. There's my certificate. I have more certificates, but 15 years I was a certified financial planner. Took 2 extra years of college coursework, Northwestern University School of Continuing Studies. Wonderful program, wonderful hands-on experience managing family offices and multi-generational families and wealth management for professionals and for mom and pop businesses, entrepreneurs. And it was a great firm for the first 14 years that I was at LPL Financial. Mark Cassidy was the CEO, Robert J. Moore was the president CEO, Mimi Bach, Esther Stearns, Andy Calbow. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but wonderful, wonderful leaders. And we had an absolutely tremendous firm and provided financial planning for citizens of the United States of America and anybody with a social security number. That was kind of the rule at LPL anyway. You couldn't deal with anyone, which I thought was ridiculous, but you couldn't deal with anyone unless they had a social security number. But we provided excellent financial planning and helped couples to retire securely and have a good nest egg for the future. And that was something that I worked very, very hard on for almost 16 and a half years with LPL Financial. But when the company went public and Dan Arnold was brought in 2017 to lead as president and CEO, I guess things started going downhill. I didn't really notice it until March of 2021 when LPL Financial politically weaponized the home office supervisory structure. And all of a sudden they gave me a new supervisor from Michigan, Lauren Scott Keyes, a young, well, not that young, he's probably early 50s, a guy who had never kept almost any job for more than a year. Okay, this guy could not hold a job. And I went back in his record and he held one job for maybe 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, fixed income capital. But all his other jobs he lost in 9 months, 10 months, a year. And so they gave me this nobody who worked out of his basement in Michigan. So as a supervisor. So I thought that was really strange. The guy called me once in 2 years, um, kind of missing in action. And then everything that could go whack did go whack. Because after the midterm elections in early 2023, February, he wrote me a letter on non LPL financial letterhead. So on no letterhead, totally unofficial, expressing a problem with my fertility and my politics. I had friends in politics, I had clients in human reproduction globally that I did business consulting for, and he wrote me a letter saying it was a problem, my fertility and my politics. Although I had been approved for journalism as an outside business activity, totally approved, since 2011. And I was writing articles about finance, business, culture, politics, and running it through marketing regulatory review, getting the articles completely approved since 2011. So something wasn't right. And Lauren Scott Keyes wrote me a letter saying he had a problem with my fertility and my politics. And the harassment never really stopped. He had a call with me in, I think it was March of, the first call in 2 years, in March of 2022, going over death procedures, which I thought was really strange. And he was in his basement, like a basement bedroom. It had a dresser in it, and he was kind of like heaving and huffing and sweating. And I have pictures of it, by the way, because I knew something wasn't right, so I took pictures of it. And he looked very uncomfortable and very almost like some pedophile or something. He just looked bizarre, and he was like breathing heavily and asking me if I knew about the death procedures at LPL. And I said, yes, I know about the whole 600-page compliance manual. And so the year went by, and in September, I got a notification to do trades in a client's account, and I couldn't reach the client, and I couldn't reach the family of the client. So I asked my advisory compliance review person and Lauren Scott Keyes what I should do. And they said I should, rebalance the accounts, do a small mutual fund trade. You don't need to talk to the client. So I did a slight rebalance in the account. And then in October, I found out when I was at another client in Skokie, Illinois, that this client had passed a few months earlier. I called Lauren Scott Keyes in Michigan. I told him this client had passed quite a few months earlier, and nobody told me, nobody told LPL. And he said, well, mate, you didn't know? And I said, no, I didn't know. And he's like, are you sure you didn't know? And I said, no, I didn't know. I called LPL to do something or find out something about the account, and they said that a death certificate had been floated anonymously in the LPL system. So he said, oh, you don't know. Okay, well then report it as soon as possible. So I did, but the next day, 2 of the accounts of the 5 didn't have the death reported on the accounts. And I thought that was really, really strange. So I made sure that they put the death on the 2 accounts, because when somebody dies, you need to report it to all their banks, brokerages, and custodians of their assets immediately. And this went on that, let's see, by November, I think it was the election, I think it was November 8th of 2022, that I was on the way to the cemetery to visit my deceased grandparents on election day 2022 in Chicago, that I got a call from Lauren Scott Keyes, an anonymous new lawyer from a non-LPL number, and Roma Patel, a lawyer from LPL Financial. And I pulled over. I was on my way to the cemetery to pay respects to my deceased grandparents. And I thought, what is going on? Lauren didn't say anything Roma said a few things, and this anonymous new lawyer, they were all asking me questions about, when did you meet Helen Ramirez Odell? She was the deceased client. She was a public figure. She was well known. She was a nurse educator, a feminist, a union pioneer and activist with Chicago Public Schools, Retired Teachers Association of Chicago, Chicago Teachers Union. She met her second husband on the picket lines in the 80s. She was an author. She was a nurse educator. She worked with Women's Working History Project, which still hasn't reported her death 2.5 years later. What is up with that? Why hasn't Women's Working History Project, which she was very, very heavily involved in, they're reporting her as still alive if you look at their website. But yeah, I received a call questioning me. How did you meet her? How did she become your client? Did you solicit her? Did she solicit you? A million questions. And I knew something was very, very wrong, because the minute I learned of her death, I followed the procedures. I reported the client's death. So fast forward to February of 2023, last year, and strange things were going on. I got a letter from Lauren Scott Keyes expressing concern about my fertility and my politics, which you can clearly see. Trump, Kennedy, Chicago, Abraham Lincoln, patriot, conservative, equality, LGBTQ, everybody is equal, global citizens of the world. I love everybody. So they were harassing me. They started deleting my emails en masse, just like deleting them, doctoring my client work, sending my clients fraudulent letters, interfering with their wires when they were trying to buy houses in Florida, shutting down their accounts, their advisory accounts, and sending them completely fraudulent letters that were not in the LPL system. Made up letters saying, we're sorry, we're canceling you as clients. And all of this is proven. So I started doing some research and realizing that Lauren Scott Keyes in Michigan worked with these guys that were at Breen Asset Management and Breen Capital in February of last year. And I started looking at their FINRA licenses, and a lot of these LPL people in the supervisory structure around the nation had fake licenses that they never earned on the FINRA records. So their licenses were doctored by LPL on FINRA records and Atria Wealth that they never earned these licenses. And then I saw that Atria Wealth offshored to Companies House UK in foreign territories. It's a Lee Equity Partners, Thomas H. Lee, who did the leveraged buyout with Snapple, and he went mysteriously dead last February. They said he committed suicide with a shotgun in his family office in New York. Very suspicious, staged death, not a real death, of Thomas H. Lee. But some weird things going on with Lee Equity Partners, because they own Prelude Fertility, Inception Fertility, My Egg Bank, or have a stake in them, one of the biggest fertility players in the United States. And they wanted to buy one of my clients, the World Egg and Sperm Bank. We went public in Baltimore in late October 2022 as business consultant and client. But they wanted to acquire one of my clients, and so that's a coincidence that Lee Equity Partners owned Atria Wealth, which slapped together about 6 broker dealers in 4 years or so in a short amount of time. And they also wanted to buy my client, and they also wanted to do a merger and acquisition with LPL. So here I am with big matriarchs and patriarchs as clients in Chicago. Here I am with big fertility and egg bank clients in the United States of America. in the IVF industry. And also, here I am, an 18 and a half year veteran of the financial industry. And the common link is Lee Equity Partners. And so, my supervisor, and I say that loosely because he's completely unqualified to have any job. I don't even know if he's still at LPL, why he's still at LPL. But Dan Arnold was fired yesterday. So Lauren Scott Keyes was, involved in Breen Asset Management and Breen Capital in this offshoring of Atria Wealth. So in LPL Financial, when I decided to inform LPL General Counsel and Legal Department and Dan Arnold and the whole administration of LPL via hundreds of pages of copiously sourced proof of what was going on with Atria Wealth and Breen Asset Management and Breen Capital, and I gave it to FINRA and the SEC. They supposedly did an investigation. They used that information against me and started deleting on Greek Easter of last year 60,000 of my emails. So I gave them the data that Breen Asset Management, Breen Capital was offshoring almost $800 million. So like $750 million, $800 million in SEC records in almost real time. Like within 4.5 days, I was showing them the offshoring of almost $800 million that my supervisor in Michigan was involved in with his two Breen Asset Management, 2 or 3 former buddies. Well, they used my intel, my reports. I don't want to say whistleblowing because I was just an employee doing the right thing. Is that whistleblowing, or is that just being an employee of 16 and a half years doing the right thing? And they used it to do fraud with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they undid that $800 million offshoring, and they backdated it to 2019, and all of a sudden the money disappeared, which the SEC is corrupt, the IRS is corrupt, the FDA is corrupt, the FCC is corrupt, the FBI is corrupt, the CIA is corrupt. Homeland Security, like all our agencies, our whole government is corrupt. I think everybody knows that now. But they used my intel to dig themselves deeper into their crimes. They could have used it to undo evil, but they used it to go deeper into evil. So by March 28th, I had a meeting with the sales supervisor and one of the head legal people, and it was decided that I would leave LPL because this was an untenable situation. In that meeting, I proved to them that I did all the trades in the Helen Ramirez Odell accounts over 12 years. They were 100% compliant. I showed them that I did all the buying and selling and rebalancing and communications with the clients. I logged all the meetings over 12 years that I was supposed to do. That was proven. And they, in the meeting, admitted that that was proven, that I excellently managed those accounts. But I was supposed to leave voluntarily, and then the second best thing is to be terminated without cause, okay? So you could leave voluntarily, you could terminate, but without any cause. So on kind of neutral terms. And in April, I wanted to get those 5 Helen Ramirez Odell accounts. She had severely disabled, mentally ill heirs, like a daughter and a grandson, that we planned for 12 years that they'd always be taken care of. So because I care about the disabled, I care about the mentally ill, I care about people that are going to be on government benefits the rest of their life, and they need that nest egg that their parents or guardians accumulated for them to supplement the disability, because entitlement programs aren't intended to take care of you for the rest of your life. They're intended to supplement the nest egg. And so I took care of these clients for 12 years, and I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of, and I wanted these accounts out of my name because I was leaving, which makes sense. Well, they gave me a little trouble about that, but finally they switched my supervisor to John Scarbino in Marietta, California, and his wife is Denise Scarbino, who is registered with the 5 or 6 Atria Wealth Broker Dealers, which was kind of strange because LPL's head guy, Doug, somebody went over to Atria Wealth prior to that. So they have the wife of the guy they're giving me who's registered with 6 broker dealers at Atria Wealth. Well, that's kind of a conflict of interest, you would think. So I suspected that they were offshoring LPL Financial, Atria Wealth, Breen Asset Management, Breen Capital. I put that in copious reports. Finally, they gave me 5 fraudulent signatures on an Adobe font. So it said John Scarbino, but you can't do that. You can't move assets unless it's a wet signature, like an original signature, or a DocuSign with envelope ID. You can't use a fake signature. You can't like generate it on a computer in Adobe and do like a font as your signature. And that's exactly what John Scarbino did, and then the accounts disappeared. Well, that's illegal. That's money laundering, that's fraud, that's stealing, that's theft of funds. And also the client had half of her wealth roughly at the Chicago Public School System's annuity system, because I always thought they were decent, and so I would never tell somebody to move your funds to LPL Financial if they had good financial advice at another firm. So I thought the Chicago Public Schools were doing a good job, and so I told her, keep it there. They're doing a good job with the annuities. But, I reported the death in early October of 2022, and nobody had reported it to the Chicago Public Schools, even though that year the Blythe brothers were selling her house. Robert J. Blythe and his brother, they were selling her house behind LPL's back, behind my back, behind everybody's back. They were secretly transacting in her estate, which is like stealing and fraud and illegal. And so by the end of this year, so I had these accounts moved out of my ID, but the Blythe brothers had transacted in her estate the year before, and it's on Cook County Recorder of Deeds records, like their signatures and everything they did is logged. And also there's a probate estate, so you can see what the client wanted, and you could see that clearly what the Blythe brothers and the Scarbinos and Lauren Scott Keyes did at LPL were against the client's wishes. They stole from my client. They stole from her disabled mentally ill heir. They stole from her disabled mentally ill grandson. And this is all public record because they did a House resolution, they did a Senate bill, they did a fake Substance News, J.B. Pritzker's like Substance News article. They did witness slips for the House and the Senate, Illinois State Legislature. And so this is all public record that they were very involved in NAMI. She was a public figure, the client. What she wanted for her granddaughter and her grandson was like very, very public and very well known. And they advocated too with the Mental Illness Association. So these people at LPL were stealing, and then they used her right after her death within days. They did fundraisers for Brandon Johnson for mayor. They used her for political fundraising, her legacy. They were stealing her legacy from her, and they stole her house. And her husband had a political museum and a war museum in the basement. He was a collector of war memorabilia and political memorabilia in their basement in Chicago. And I've been in that basement. And so the globalists were stealing it. J.B. Pritzker was stealing it. The Blythe brothers were stealing it. The Scarbinos in Marietta, California, probably State Department, were stealing it. Lauren Scott Keyes, Kai's. I doubt he's State Department. He's just like was Dan Arnold's dog in Michigan. And I was supposed to, when I left, transfer all my clients to another advisor who I've known forever. And he, at the last minute, couldn't take my clients. And Lauren Scott Kai's was his supervisor too. So he had to move to a different advisor because he couldn't have this like corrupt guy. But anyway, I'm really, really happy that Dan Arnold was fired with cause, because the Wall Street Journal and Think Advisor and Investment News and Bloomberg and these dozens of publications are not telling you the real story. They're saying that the board fired Dan Arnold for inappropriate conduct, things he said to other employees. Okay, well, I know what he said to me. He had his female young assistant call me a bunch of times because he was terrified of the information that I sent to the legal department. But I know the real story. And Dan Arnold, thankfully, was fired with cause, because we were a great firm at LPL Financial. There's my certificate back there. Certified Financial Planner, Board of Standards. LPL was a great firm under Robert J. Moore, Andy Calbell, Mark Cassidy, Mimi Bach, Esther Stearns. Great firm. Dan Arnold worked for the globalists. Dan Arnold, I think he owned some type of sports team or was part owner in some type of sports team. He made about $17 million a year. They're taking away his stock options. They should take away everything. They should take away his freedom. The man is a traitor. See, what would happen if we offshored LPL Financial, if we offshored Breen Asset Management, Breen Capital, Atria Wealth, 6 broker-dealers that they slapped together? What would happen is that foreign enemies would own financial planning, personal financial planning in the United States of America. That's a problem. And investment banking and municipal investment banking and underwriting. That's a problem. Remember the mortgage crisis, where mortgages and everything was securitized, sliced and diced and chopped up and sold in partitions. So you own pieces of the mortgage industry. Well, that's what would happen if foreign enemies owned investment banking and municipal investment banking and underwriting and in the United States of America, is that they would sell America in tranches, in securitized tranches, back to Americans in little pieces. So we'd own representations of hard assets. So you just own zeros and ones on a screen. You'd own fake representations of hard assets. And so what they want to do is they want to like suck out the hard assets from America, the land, the human enterprise, the innovation, the science, the medicine, the farmland, the medicine, the life sciences, human reproduction, procreation. Abortion is a lie. Abortion has always been a lie. No country in the world celebrates killing babies. So I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say hallelujah. Seriously, praise the Lord that Dan Arnold was fired, and it's indicative of a lot of people that need to be fired in the United States of America, and LPL Financial will rise again. This was my firm for 16.5 years. LPL Financial will rise again. Bring back Robert J. Moore. Mark Cassidy, come back. Stop doing venture capital. Come back, Mark Cassidy. Come back, Andy from Florida. Come back. Come back, Esther. Come back, Mimi. LPL Financial will rise again. So I wasn't going to speak out on this since I left, but since it was announced yesterday that Dan Arnold was fired, I just have to say he was committing treason. He politically weaponized the LPL Financial Home Office supervisory structure in March of 2021. Then, when I brought this to the attention of FINRA, the SEC, Dan Arnold, LPL General Counsel, LPL Legal, everybody, sales, when I brought it to the attention via hundreds and hundreds of pages, plus thousands, 60,000 emails, plus they doctored my books and records. All of a sudden, I brought it to their attention. Then they wanted to cover it up and hide it. And like I said, FINRA was doctoring licenses and FINRA was involved in this. So they were turning my evidence that was supposed to help the American public against me. And so I know LPL will rise again because Dan Arnold is gone. And he was serving the globalists, and he was about himself and money and greed, and he didn't care about the clients, he didn't care about the advisors, he didn't care about the employees, he didn't care about the board of directors. And it's just the best thing in the world that he's gone. And it can only get better, but they put defamation on my U4 and my U5, saying that, you know, Brian Rubin, the special needs attorney who has real estate problems, and his daughter died right before my client. So he was reeling from the death of his only daughter. Brian Rubin, had real estate problems. He just lost his daughter. He's hard up for cash. And so he put a complaint into LPL. He didn't name me, but he put a claim into LPL that the rep of the accounts for this deceased woman had mismanagement and $50,000 to $100,000 in damages. First of all, that's not true. I made her tons and tons of money. I mean, the accounts all went up, up, up. I did a wonderful job over 12 years. I managed them. I did all the trades. I documented everything. It's completely documented with LPL Financial. Every trade that should have been made was made, but he's hard up for money. So he just wants to file a false claim. Well, LPL won't let me talk to anybody. FINRA keeps bouncing me to the Chicago office that won't talk to me. They keep bouncing me back to Maryland or wherever they are, DC, the main office of FINRA. So everybody's saying everyone else needs to remove it. And then CFP board did a fraudulent defamatory press release saying that I put clients' information on LinkedIn, which I didn't. I would never put PII about a client on LinkedIn. But, U.S. Copyright Act, critical news analysis of things that are going on that can protect the public, and we can comment on things in the news. Well, Dan Arnold's firing is definitely in the news, and he was fired with cause way beyond Executive Order 13848, way beyond what the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Think Advisor, Investment News, any of these publications are going to tell you. He was fired for politically weaponizing the Home Office supervisory structure in March of 2021, and then they redid the entire supervisory structure and changed people's phone numbers in mid-March of last year. So when I reported all this, they suddenly changed the whole Home Office supervisory manual. They changed the entire compliance manual. They even changed the reporting death procedures with the Social Security Administration, United States Social Security Administration. But, peace, love. I love you, global friends. LPL will rise again. The United States will rise again. Trump, 2024. Make America healthy again. Kennedy is for all. Abraham Lincoln, Illinois, Chicago. Peace out.